Welcome everybody to September's LOF&BE webinar. I'm Sarah McAllister with U.S. Forest Service. I'm hosting these with Dr. Sam Anzello and Sayaka Suzuki. Just a reminder to everybody to keep yourself on mute, and I will read. If you want to ask questions whenever, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and I will answer. I will read them out when it's time to do the questions. And we're recording this to put it up on YouTube, so just remember to act accordingly. So our speaker today, I'm really happy to introduce Dr. Emanuele Gissi. He is serving as the fire chief of the Fire Brigade of Savona, a provincial branch of the Italian Fire and Rescue Services. His tasks include emergency management at the national and international incidents, fire safety enforcements for civil and industrial activities, and regulation writing. He is a mechanical engineer and a PhD in technical physics and collaborates with several research and development projects with CFD fire simulations in buildings and in wildland fires. He is the main developer of several open source tools for fire simulations with the NIST Fire Dynamics Simulator. And with that, Emanuele, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I'll let you take over.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much indeed for introducing me. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to such a great audience. So I hope that my screen is visible to everybody. Is that okay? Can you confirm that?
Yes, you are good.
Okay. I'll keep my chat open. So if anybody wants to give feedback during the speech or during the webinar, I'll be very happy to read it and answer also online. So I'm trying to present you how we fight interface fires in Italy and the role of simulation tools. So why here? So this is going to be quite a journey into the Italian wildfire suppression trials and errors. We try a lot of things, and sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes we improve the techniques. So, but why we are here? Why a firefighter here? So our daily job is often that of bridging the gap between the research and the fire line. So we read your papers, we try to understand them, and we try to apply them on the fire line. And so we think that it's very important to give feedback to you, the researchers, about the results of our experiments, of our trial and errors. So during this presentation, do not expect rocket science, but just daily life at the fire brigade, trying to apply what we read from your papers and put that to practical use on the field. So first of all, let me thank all the people that are contributing in a way or another to our trials and errors. First of all, Gianfilippo Micillo from the central offices for wildfire fighting, for wildfire suppression in Rome. And then all the friends from the CIMA Research Foundation, that is Center of Excellence for Civil Protection and Firefighting in Italy. And of course, the very friendly team from the National Institute of Standards and Technology developing Fire Dynamics Simulator, and the fire safety engineering team at CERN. Oriol is there. I think he's attending this webinar. In his previous life, he was very expert in firefighting. So let's go ahead. Thank you, all of you. And let's see the outline of this webinar. So I'll start talking about the Italian Fire Rescue Service, and I want to talk to you about a little bit about our engineering approach to our daily activities. The good enough word is there because we can say the firefighters are authorized to use duct tape and to cut corners. So when we talk about engineering approach, we are just doing what works better in our daily job, what can help us reach the results faster and in a safer way. Then I'll talk you about fighting interface fires in Italy and how some problems arise from that activity and how we found a few solutions about that. In particular, for the aspects, not the technical aspects of the suppression, that is a quite consolidated sector, but on the management of wildfire suppression. We will talk then about on the field applications of wildfire modeling tools, always in connection with the management of wildfire suppression. And if time allows, I'll give you a brief demonstration of two of the tools that are the open source tools that we develop and that we contribute back to the community of wildfire simulation. And of course, questions and answers. So, my organization is the Corpo Nazionale dei Vigili del Fuoco, a long name to say the National Public Organization for Fire and Rescue. In Italy, we are a branch of the Italian Ministry of the Interior, so we are a public organization. We are civil servants. We work on any sector where a rescue has to be. For example, from rough water rescue to earthquake rescue to, of course, fires in industrial and civil settings, but of course also in wildfires. Our mission is twofold. We have, of course, fire and technical rescue. As I told you, any kind of emergency and technical rescue in Italy, and fast response to natural man-made disasters, both at the national and at an international level, and of course wildfires and interface fires. But we are also authority having jurisdiction over the matters of fire safety in civil and industrial facilities. So we have a very strong engineering group that writes fire safety regulations and do testing on materials and also performs fire investigations. So this is important because the fire safety mission implies several activities, being authority having jurisdiction on the matters of fire safety, fire investigation, and applied research. And all this makes us model users. So we are very much into model using, especially for safety in buildings. And the model of reference is, of course, the fire dynamic simulator. So just to size our organization very quickly, we got a lot of slides, and I don't want to miss the opportunity. So we are 35,000 professionals, firefighters and support staff. We have more or less 1,000 engineers, and we have 100 PhDs working on the aspects that I already said. We cover the whole territory. The Italian territory is more or less, the US, for example, is 30 times the area of the Italian territory, but just 5% population. So you understand that the density of the population in Italy is much higher than in the US and everywhere else in the world. So on an average day, we suppress around 900 fires in all Italy, but this is just 25% of our overall activities. And then there are other numbers about our national work, but I will skip them quickly. So my organization is involved in any kind of activity. So directly on the field, for example, I'm showing you user operations. User is urban search and rescue after earthquakes. This is a Matrice earthquake in 2016. But at the same time, we protect our cultural heritage. That is the heart of Europe. For example, this is the Cathedral of San Benedetto di Norcia in the central part of Italy that was badly damaged after the earthquake. And our engineering teams that work under the tents were capable of designing the immediate engineering activity and propping up of what remained of the church and rescue of the cultural heritage. So we are very used to on the field data collection and engineering. For example, this is another example of using geographical data to search for alive people under the rubble. This is the city of the small town of Amatrice. More than 200 people lost their life after the earthquake, and this is the kind of data collection and treatment that we can do under the tents after an earthquake. So we are trying to apply the same good enough engineering approach to wildfires. Let's get into the problem. So the problem or the opportunity, it depends on the point of view. So these are Italian forests. 38% of Italy is forested. This is the second country in Europe for forest cover, and 32% of these forests are valuable forests. These are in protected areas. And we have seen a huge increase in the area of forest in the last 30 years. We have an increase of 30% of surface covered by forest for increased protection, increased environmental sensitivity, but also due to rural abandonment. The people are leaving the rural areas in favor of cities. And the province where I'm the fire chief of is the province of Savona, and it's the first province in Italy. It's on close to this red arrow on the left-hand side of this map. And the Savona province is covered by 77% of its territory by forests. And Italy is also rich of biotopes, of different biotopes, from the alpine biotopes to the Mediterranean biotope of the coastal areas. So we have a wildfire suppression organization in Italy that has two levels of responsibility. So the main responsibility over wildfire suppression lies on the regions. The regions are responsible of organizing regional operating centers that we call SOUP, but it does not make it a dish for eating. And they are also responsible for forecast, prevention, and suppression of the fires, but also on the management of the huge amount of volunteers that help the firefighters suppressing the fires. And the state supports the activity of the regions. First with a national organization like the firefighters, but also the Department of Civil Protection and also the Carabinieri Forestali, that is the forest police. There's a national operational center that manages the air tanker fleet, the Italian air tanker fleet, that is technically managed by the Vigili del Fuoco, by my organization, but it's the organization is its deployment is managed by a national operating center. And also the state makes the link with the general civil protection, the European civil protection mechanism that allows us to share resources, firefighting resources all over Europe. For the first time, I think 2 summers ago, Italy sent many of the air tankers to Sweden, a country that is not so used to fighting forest fires, but that the climate change or the climate emergency, as I prefer to call it, is changing a lot here in Europe as well. So, what about wildfires in Italy? In the last 40 years, we have seen we got good numbers there, because we have seen a decrease of the total burnt area per year. We are now at 50,000 hectares per year on average, and we have also a reduction of the number of fires per year. We are at around 5,000 fires in Italy per year, and we have an average fire size that stays more or less around 10 hectares. These are numbers that are very different to the numbers that we are used in the US or in other countries. Imagine that our country is very densely populated with 266 persons per square kilometer. So even those small fires have a huge effect on the local communities. So as Elsa Pastor from UPC explained very well in April in a previous webinar, we are living in a climate emergency. So we have more and more intense wildfires and way longer fire season. For example, in 2020, we had a fire season that was 6 months long. That it's almost double than what we were used to. And as I told you, we are seeing also some environmental changes. We have an increase in the interface fires because the people love to live in nature. And so this leads us to an increase of this kind of fires. So, and on the bottom side of the slide, you see that Italy is in the midst of an important change, an important climatic change. In the last 50 years, we have seen a mean temperature variation of 2.5 degrees rise. So this is really changing the game for us. What about 2021? So we just have estimates taken from the European Forest Fire Information System of so-called EFIS, data coming from the Sentinel-2 satellites. And so the 2021 is being a terrible year, especially for southern regions of our country. We have now an estimate of a burnt area that is 4 times higher than the average. We are almost reaching 160,000 hectares of burned area. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you see a heat map of where the fires have struck more, especially in the southern part of Italy. We see a similar pattern in Greece, where the fires are much more than the average per year of the last 20 years. And in Portugal, we are seeing something very different. On the contrary, we see a large average and an estimate of burned area that is very low. We are still investigating the causes of this fourfold increase this year, and but we think that also due to the location where these fires are happening, this is due to criminal activity and connected to the possibility to obtain specific financing for forest works. On the bottom left of this slide, you see how our organization responded to this emergency. On August 2021, we had almost 1,000 firefighters more in overtime. That is more or less, we can say 20–25% of increase in overtime personnel, and more than 100 incident commanders that were deployed to the most struck areas. And you see also that this is the picture from September the 2nd, and you see the deployment of helicopters and air tankers on Italy. You see how our forces were moved to the south of Italy to respond to this emergency. So while consulting the EFIS data, you see here we see in these maps a pattern of criminal activity and probably a lack of preventive actions from this point of view, where our country should work more. And so I just noted some of the fires, the Madonie fire and the Aspromonte fire, and in this other map from Sardinia, the Oristano fire. These 3 fires alone almost reached the national average in the last 20 years for forest fires. So this is quite surprising. And of course, we have another ongoing emergency. The emergency is still ongoing. Our organization is still working on that, as you see in the pictures. So this has changed the way we respond to fires, and we had to update a lot of our procedures so that to guarantee the safety of our personnel. Well, let me introduce another aspect. As I already said, due to population density in Italy, almost every wildfire is an interface fire. In this map, you see the main city of my region. My region is the Liguria region. This is Genova. Genova is a very long city lying along the coastline. And this is a map produced by the local authorities that show in green the interface areas of this city. So the majority of the borders, the almost totality of the borders of the city are in danger for interface fires. And in 2009, we had a very large interface fires coming down from the hills, pushed by the wind, that struck this eastern part of the city. This city has got 600,000 residents, and it's almost 30 kilometers long. So you see how the level of complexity of managing such wildfires when they happen. Of course, we have a risk forecast mechanisms. These risk forecasts are managed by the National Department of Civil Protection, and the CIMA Foundation, working here in Savona, is responsible for developing the tools that are used at the national level for this kind of risk forecast. On the left-hand side of the slide, you see a map of the susceptibility to ignition and propagation of wildfire for September the 2nd, and then you see the submodels for a specific region. This is my region. The so-called SPIRL forecast is the information we as firefighters receive, and that can help us better deploy our resources on the territory in response to the susceptibility to ignition and the propagation of wildfires. Of course, these bulletins are a fire danger rating system, and that is based on weather forecast and based on vegetation cover and topography data. This is very similar to what you probably know. It's the Canadian Fire Weather Index, but this model has been adapted to the Mediterranean conditions from the researchers from the CIMA Foundation. If you want to see more, to read more about this, I'm adding citations to each of the slides. So, but this was the overall vision, a national vision. But let's get on the field now. So let's get to the daily work of the fire brigade. So put your hard hat and boots and come with me to the field. But let's not throw water on the fire. We don't want to suppress them. We want to see how to manage this activity of wildfire suppression. So let's start from the goals of the officers that are managing wildfire suppression. And let's see how to help them reaching these goals. So, of course, the first worry for a fire officer is team safety. Because if the team are safe, or if at least they feel safe, they work much better. And we have the moral duty to send them home dirty and tired, but absolutely sane at the end of the shift. And of course, the second worry is efficacy. We have to avoid the loss of life of the citizens. We want to control the environmental damage. We want to protect property and do that as soon as possible. But we also have a problem of accountability, because we have to justify the operational choices, and we need to do that with objective data and state-of-the-art processes. We are a public organization, so the citizens that pay the taxes want us to be very accountable. And we want also to be efficient. We have to put public resources to appropriate use, and we do not want to waste these scarce resources. I say scarce, I shouldn't say that, but we firefighters, we always think that we don't have enough money to do our job. So, and our officers are confronted with, when they suppress wildfires, are always confronted to an increased complexity, because wildfire suppression is always a multi-agency work. So you have to speak to other people, to other operators that do not speak your same language. They speak Italian, but they have got another organizational language, different goals, etc. In this picture, you see those that participate in wildfire suppression. So we have the volunteers. They represent a numerical majority of the number of people that are in the woods suppressing fires. But we also have the forestry police that are in charge with the investigations of the causes of the fires. We have firefighters, of course, and we have also the emergency medical service involved. This is a picture for the Piemonte fires in 2017. So we are using, we have been using for several years the incident command system. This is a way of having a clean and clear chain of command. This system was invented as a response tool to wildfires in California and Arizona, and as for its simplicity and its efficacy, it has become now a component not just of the US National Incident Management System, but it's also widely used internationally in all hazard situations, from active shootings to hazard materials to any kind of emergency response. So at the top of the system, we have an incident commander, and then we have a command staff that has a public information officer, the liaison officers and the safety officers that are the staff of the incident commander, the direct staff of the incident commander. And then we have a general staff that deals with certain sections of the response. So of course, the chief of the operation sections is the person who deals with the organization of the effective technical wildfire suppression. But we also have a very important and growing in importance planning sections that always think at the next 6 hours of wildfire suppression. And then we have a logistics section. You all know that since Napoleon Bonaparte wars in Europe, everybody knows that the wars are always won through a good logistics. And this is the same is the war on wildfires. And of course, also the administrative part is important. And so we have also an administration section chief. And in this picture, you see this kind of organization. On the left-hand side, you see our incident commander. The incident commander is almost always in Italy a firefighter, and we call him a DOS. DOS is Direttore Operazioni di Spegnimento. He is the person in charge with the coordination of the fleet and of the teams on the ground. We can have other persons helping him out. The DTS is another kind of incident commander. I'm not going into the details because I think this is more than enough. So here you see another picture of an organization of a wildfire fighting, the management part of a wildfire fighting operation. You see an advanced command post with logistics. You see a team briefing that is happening there so that the operations were very well coordinated. You see the emergency medical system that are always available on site, and a remote staging area, especially in Italy where the roads are so narrow. and much more narrow than in the US. So it's difficult to move around in the countryside with big engines. And so we always have remote staging areas where the engines wait for deployment. And of course, close to the fires, we have a local logistics and advanced staging areas that has more or less the same role as the remote staging area, and the management of water through water tanks, and of course the ground support for heli tankers and all the flights. And of course we have the firefighter teams, but you cannot see them because they are in the Mediterranean bushes that cover them all. But you may notice that there was no smoke and no fire, because the previous pictures came from an exercise. Here you see a picture of a real fire. So this is a picture from Liguria Fires 2019. And if you ask the same question to a firefighter on the line, he's speaking about smoke, heat, the fact that he's working at night, and so how different is his or her perspective from the line of fire. So we need to take that complexity into account in our management method. So we are using a method that is very well known. It's the so-called the PDCA method. PDCA is an iterative design and management method used for the control and continuous improvement of processes. In this case, the process is the wildfire suppression. And so this process is a circular process that starts from establishing objectives, the plan phase, and then we try to carry out these objectives, the wildfire suppression, and then we gather data and we improve the process through data treatment. So after gathering the data from the field, we try to improve the process to fix the problems and reduce inefficiencies. This is the theoretical point of view, of course. This cycle is iterative. That means that we repeat the cycles n times until the fire is suppressed. And after each cycle, we try to document the process. And we also try, and this is why we need objective information and state-of-the-art processes, because we have to document what we do. And after each cycle, we know a little bit more about what we are fighting against. And at the end of the day, we know it very well. So there's also a problem of asymmetric information. That is, when we start this process, we almost know nothing about what we have in front of us. Imagine to be called on a wildfire on a remote area close to some villages, and it's night, and you are at the end of the shift. You almost know nothing, and you find yourself in the smoke, and you have to organize 100 firefighters in the woods and close to the fire line. This is the kind of problem we are trying to solve. So, translating the PDCA method to our work, planning for us means establishing or updating a plan of action. Don't think too much to a plan of action in written form. This is almost always oral and not written at the beginning, because you don't have time to write it down correctly. And then, but you have to share that with the teams and being sure that the teams understand it well. Then you perform firefighters operations. Then you try to check to have a feedback from the field operations. This has a red question mark. And you try to reassess the operational goals depending on the information that you receive from the field. But how to check? How to have information from the field and how to treat those informations? This is the main problem from the management point of view of wildfire suppression. So the traditional way of checking what's happening on the woods over the mountains, on the left-hand side, you see an advanced command post in L'Aquila fire in 2021. This is fires of this summer. And you see probably the firefighters are working over there. The command post is here, and you have to, and you want the information coming from the fire, the line of fire. And so the traditional way is just calling them and having information from the radio. But the firefighters are always well heavy of equipments, and they are also well engaged in what they are doing. So they don't like very much giving feedback. They don't have time. They've got other things to do. And so how can you form your situational awareness only from radio communication? So the result is going to be scattered, subjective, not objective as we would like, very partial, and not in sync with real time. So for us, having a scarce situational awareness, not a real-time situational awareness, is like driving blindfolded. How can you guarantee team safety, efficacy, accountability, and efficiency in such a condition? You cannot, or you can do that only partially. So we are working on that. We need to improve our situational awareness. And this is why we started searching on your research activity for practical solutions. So plan A, satellite imagery. This is a dream. Having satellite imagery on the field would be a great opportunity, because the new sensor, the short waves infrared, can penetrate thin clouds and haze. So they can see beyond the smoke. But if you got cloud coverage, you don't see anything. And another problem is that, as you see on the slide, here I'm showing you different constellations of satellites, and on the diagram you see their latency of revisit, so the frequency that we receive images from them, and the spatial resolution of their images. Currently, we are using the Sentinel constellation of satellites for obtaining images, but these satellites were thought for environmental measurement. They are non-geostationary, and so they have a 5 days frequency of for images, and they got the right sensors, but this is not very useful from an operational point of view. I cannot have an update on the situation every 5 days. So we started working with Thales Alenia Space. This is a company that is trying to develop a new kind of satellites, the Earth-like satellites, that are going to have a very low latency, because the Earth-like satellites are going to be geostationary, and they will allow us to have much more interesting information for on the field activity. So depending on the fire danger forecast, they are able to capture images from space. We can receive them from Earth. They can be treated, and then can alert us on the active fire fronts and their evolution. I won't go too much into the details, but let me say that we got 40 meters resolutions. They got a spot of 200 kilometers square. So it would be great, but it's still like a dream, because this project is still in design phase. So we need another solution. We need a plan B. We have been working with unmanned aerial vehicles with SWIR sensor for several years. We have been using them for earthquake and searching people under the rubble. We are using them for hotspotting building fires and for search and rescue of missing people. And we are starting using them also for wildfires. So we try to obtain georeferenced orthophotos or wildfire fronts and put them onto operational maps. So this is an experiment we are performing at the Savona Fire Brigade with the CIMA Foundation research. Where there's a lot of literature on the subject, and so let's see what we've done. So I presume that everybody of us know what's an orthophoto, so I'll quickly go to EMER maps. What are EMER maps? EMER maps are emergency maps. These are our most valuable tool for managing. In these maps, you see a very small fire. This is the first map we produce when we go to a wildfire. We can put any base layer there, and you see we have electrical lines, and we put the teams. Those symbols are the teams on the field, and the red star is the origin of the fires, and we try to use this information to put that on a map. We can put any base layer on that, depending on the area we are dealing with. This is a real fire we added the 21 of August, a very small fire that we used to make experiments. And the kind of experiments we did were using drones to track fire fronts. So first problem with using drones during firefighting activities is that there is an interference with the firefighting flights. And currently we don't have any data collection automation, both for mission planning and the effective data collection. And also the treatment is still very manual. And also when you have a bad wildfire, you have high-speed winds that prevent reliable flights for this kind of machines. So we are trying solutions. We are trying to have procedures to make our UAV fly during tankers refueling. But you need, for example, reliable ground air connections to be sure not to have crashes between air tankers and UAVs, or other kind of procedures that we are exploring. Oh, well, regarding the data collection automation, everything is manual now, but we have some experience there because we participated to an European project with the German Researcher Center for Artificial Intelligence. And here in this picture on the right-hand side, I hope you see it well, we are using a swarm of robots, or flying robots, for data collection into collapsed buildings. So we are going to have a meeting in Dortmund in Germany on October, the 1st of October in Germany, and we are going to talk about the automatic data collection from UAVs for wildfires. And we collect images in infrared, but we don't have correlation between the size of the fire and those measures. So there's room for research here. We don't have any source of information about this kind of problem. The issue 4, we are probably using fixed wings UAVs for data collection over wildfires in case of high winds. So what we did mission planning. We synchronized our operation with the heli and air tankers. Then we performed the UAV missions. We did data treatment. And at the end of the day, we had visible photos and infrared photos of fire line with simple mechanism that is simple enough for firefighters to use. And at the end of the day, we had georeferenced raster images of fire intensity with QGIS that we started putting them on our operational maps. We try to repeat that in various stages of the fires, and this is very useful for operational activity. I think that this would be also useful for researchers for performing validation of wildfire models. Oh, well, let me skip all this because the time is running faster than I thought. This is a final map of a fire where we have the fire perimeter and the ortho image of the fire perimeter. So, and at the end of a fire, we use those same information for the fire investigation activities. In this case, for example, our officers are demonstrating that the cause of the fire is not an electrical fault, but arson. But you've probably noticed some lines on the MR map, some orange lines on the MR maps, and those lines come from wildfire models. We started using wildfire models on the field. So in our advanced control post, advanced command post, we have the possibility of running simple wildfire models. This CIMA propagator wildfire model is a very simplified model of the dynamic of a forest fire and has a very simple interface and has got a web access on a remote service for information and for boundary conditions. This model is based on stochastic cellular automata, nothing new there, so I just skip very quickly. And this is a distilled form of experience of the Italian fires put into a fire models by the CIMA Research Foundation. And so this wildfire model, of course, keeping into account the topography, the wind, and the fuel moisture, and is a very simple model, very fast to use, and that has had a validation and calibration of the model with real fires, and that is currently used also for risk assessment at certain levels of our organization. And we have started using this model also for operational activities. You see here how the orange lines are exported from the CIMA propagator forecast to our emergency map. And these forecasts are being used by the incident commander for placing the teams on the right position, on a safe position, and keeping the fire line they decide to keep. But there's also another problem. We need to plan fire evacuations in advance, and those stochastic models are not enough. We need a sort of tenability forecast, and we are searching for practical solutions for this problem. What's tenability? Well, first of all, why are we doing this? Because currently the firefighters are estimating the time of arrival of the fire line on the urban interface, and they are accordingly, they are preparing for the evacuation of civilians. But according to experience, the smoke can arrive much early on the urban interface, as you see in this picture from Campania fires in 2021. And so we need a study of tenability. Tenability, in very short, is something that you find in the fire codes for buildings. Tenability is the capability of people, of the civilians, to perform self-rescue activities. And due to smoke, due to the toxicity effect of the fire effluence, irritating effect, and thermal effect, and the limitation of visibility, due to these four effects, people lose the tenability, lose the capacity of saving themselves. So we are reusing this concept of tenability. We use in the fire safety design of buildings, and we want to use that on wildfires. How? By moving the ASET-RSET analysis that we do in buildings that compare the available safe egress time given from the fire and their effluence inside the building, comparing it with the so-called required safe egress time. And so we are reusing a concept developed by a group of researchers, especially Enrico Ronchi from the Lund University, and that is the next YAFS webinar speaker that I invite you for following his discussion as well. And they introduced a new concept that is the WASET against WRSET analysis for UVI fires. What does this mean? In this concept, they try to compare the time to tenability for wildfires to the time required for escape to people. But of course, to assess the spatial and temporal vulnerability, you need to model you need to model the smoke of fires, and to do that you need physical models. So why physical models? Well, because there's a significant increase in the availability of affordable and computing power, and that also we want greater physical fidelity, especially in the complex Italian orography that you see on the right-hand side. This is the Cinque Terre in our region. So we are already used to employing fire dynamic simulator, and so we are trying to use fire dynamic simulator again on wildfires. Well, FDS can simulate a solid phase combustion, but this is much too much for our computing capacities, and also much too much for reaching trying to reach real-time results for our work. So we are using FDS capability with level set that are good enough for fire simulation on the field. And of course, level set, you all know that, is a Eulerian framework that reproduce the front tracking model fire site approach to front tracking of wildfires. Our contribution to this problem has been developing QGIS to FDS. QGIS to FDS is an easy to use user interface, an open source user interface that can take geographical data and land use data and transform that to an input file for FDS. This is here you see the link to the website. There's full documentation for that. If you want to try experimenting with FDS on wildfires, QGIS to FDS can help you out transforming geographical data to a good input file for FDS. And this tool that was born out of helping us for wildfires has been used at CERN by the fire safety engineering team for the outdoor modeling of dispersion of radioactive soot from a hypothetical fire of the laboratories of the CERN Organization for Nuclear Research in Geneva. But back to wildfires. So this is our process. We get the land use from CIMA Propagator, the digital elevation model from everywhere, and we have a rugged weather station to have local data, real-time data. We send this data to QGIS to FDS, and we carried our not so rugged Linux server to the field, and we try to make start simulations with FDS and SmokeView for smoke modeling on fires. The result we are searching for, this is a proof of concept. This is a mass evacuation in Pescara. On the left-hand side, you see a picture of a very recent evacuation due to a Voi fire in the central Italy on the 2nd of August 2021. The results that we want to obtain are those on the right-hand side. So those colored areas are the areas that are untenable according to the model, and we want to forecast this untenability for operational evacuation planning well in advance, because we don't want this to happen again. This is the accident that happened in Imati in Greece, the 24th of July 2018, where 100 people were dead due to a wildfire rapidly advancing towards the coastal area. We want to be able to prevent this by forecasting in a good enough way, not with an immense precision, what's going to happen in the next 6 hours of wildfires. Of course, we got problems to solve. This is a work in progress. We got problems with the land use. We are still slower than real time, but we are very optimistic about that. And the procedures is not firefighter proof at the moment. It's really still too complex to throw it to firefighters. So in quick conclusion, we have done a quick tour into the Italian wildfire suppression trials and errors. We try to do our job, and we try to improve day by day. We try to be effective in suppression, but I think that as a country that we have a lot to do for an effective prevention of wildfires, especially a prevention of the criminal activity that creates a lot of problems in certain years. On the right-hand side, you see a picture stolen from the fire that spread yesterday close to 2 villages under the coverage of my fire brigade. And so I showed you the importance of situational awareness for us. Situational awareness means that in complex scenarios, we want to obtain a clear view of what's happening. And this is not easy. So we are trying to see different approaches to this kind of problems. And I've also shown you as wildfire models can play a very important role for operational planning, both for safe and effective suppression. Knowing where a fire is going to advance in the next 6 hours allows me to place the teams in a safe position and in a good place to defend the fire line. But also the new paradigm proposed by the researchers on evacuation modeling and physical models can help us a lot in operational planning of safe and effective mass evacuations. And this probably, as a feedback, this kind of information from infrared data from UAVs can probably help the physical model validations. We know that prescriptive burns are not so good to validate fire models that have to work in real-world complex scenarios. So this is what we can offer. But what's most important is that all we are doing is just a very little contribution for the future of our planet and for leaving this planet a better place for our children. So thank you very much for being very patient to me and for listening to me until now. I misused the time, but there's still time for question and answers, I think.
Yeah, I think we have time for a couple questions, and I want to thank you for that. Really was quite the journey through fire in Italy and the struggles that you guys have. And it's interesting that the struggles that you have are very similar to the struggles that we are facing in the U.S., right? In terms of how do we get better information on the fires? What do we, where they are, how to spool up the modeling and to get information as fast as possible. There's a comment here in the chat box that Sam had added, which kind of I also want to point out is, I really appreciate your link that you've made between the research and the management field. I think that's a really important thing that we need to do a lot more of. And that's something that LOF&BE is aiming to do, is to establish a fire service advisory panel so that we can get some feedback from managers and learn what is really needed to help us guide research. Because like you said, there can be a disconnect between what people on the ground really need and what the researchers think they need. So we'll plug it out there for anybody who might be interested in that. So there's a question that just popped up here. Is one of the best methods to mitigate WUI fires is fuel management in the zones around the structures? And you have not mentioned much about this. Is that something that you're working on in Italy as well?
Well, this is not part of our direct work, because as an organization, we don't deal with prevention, but we just do fire suppression. But we are trying to push new regulations for that, because you are absolutely right. I fully agree with you. It's what we see in our direct experience. It is what I saw this night. If the people were clearing the areas around the buildings, we would work much less to protect their houses. So this has to get into the regulation. This has to be compulsory. And so we are pushing that agenda as well. So writing a specific regulation for protecting the interface communities from wildfires. And of course, we are in search of the state-of-the-art ideas on that. So to put that directly into the regulation. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, comment that they just apparently developed a guide and might be helpful. So yeah, thank you for that. Follow-up question on that. You mentioned that there are a lot of different biomes in Italy, and one of the issues that we have in the U.S. is that a lot of our ecosystems are adapted to fire, and they evolved with fire, and so it's kind of necessary to keep them healthy. Is that an issue that you're also facing in Italy? Is that not only do you have these fuel treatments, but are your ecosystem suffering from lack of fire? And is that something that you have to deal with? Or, with climate change making our forests less resilient too, they're less able to adapt and to fires. And I'm just wondering if that is a thing in Italy as well.
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but to my knowledge, we don't have such kind of biotopes where fire is an important ingredient in their life cycle. So fire is not necessary to preserve our environments. We also have a problem with prescribed fires. We don't do a lot of prescribed fires in Italy because we have such dense population, and this is not well accepted from the communities. So we have a lot to do there to reduce the fuel load of our hills and mountains, and to prevent the larger fires the more powerful fires we are start to see.
While we were talking, we got a link to the guide and an email contact. So I will make sure I share the chat or save the chat, so if anybody needs that link later, it can be made available. Well, we are running out of time, so unless there are any final questions, we'll stick to our hour here, and I'm sure Emanuele will be happy to answer any questions via email. So with that, I'll let everybody go about their day. Let those in Japan go to bed. And thank you again for the really wonderful talk, and really appreciate it. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your patience, and hope to join the service, the fire service advisory panel.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.